piquete, estoy bien. No tengo de 100, pero tengo los míos, hermano. Aquí estamos todo bien. Me gozo la vida, pa' mí es la ley.
Hi, it's Crystal, your very own personal beauty pro. And when I say I'm a beauty pro, I actually am a professional makeup artist. Along the way, because I have such a passion for all things beauty, I've also become a licensed esthetician and hair stylist. My primary work is what's called commercial or advertising. I also do editorial, which is magazine work, and runway, which are things like New York Fashion Week. In addition to doing what I love sharing professional tips and tricks and techniques. I have worked on all the races and hundreds of faces, so there are literally gems for everyone. Today's video is one I've been threatening for a very long time, and that is one all about face powders. I have approximately 30 face powders I'm going to talk about today. Of course, I'm going to give you some pro tips and techniques for all skin types and all ages. We're going to talk about placement, what I think about these various brands and formulas. Now, if a brand you're curious about or interested in is not in this video, there are a variety of reasons that could be. Maybe I've never tried it, maybe I haven't yet acquired it. I think with almost 30 we're pretty much set. So the first category up is setting powders, and that is going to bring us to our first of many major key alerts, and that's how to apply powders, what tools to use. Now, one of my favorite methods for applying powder is a good old-fashioned powder puff. This one is by Mercier, and it's very good quality. They wash almost like new and they last through several uses, and several brands have good powder puffs. If you are an oily girl, powder puffs and sponge wedges, good quality ones that are made specifically for either loose powder or pressed powder, are some of your best friends when it comes to applying product. Oily girls, if you set your foundation with a brush, then you are pretty much telling your oil to come back in just a few minutes. A puff or a disc really rolls and merges that powder with the liquid or the cream foundation, helps the powder to absorb the carrier out and leave the pigment behind. It itself clings to the foundation and it creates a nice seal and a nice smooth barrier and extends the wear when it's applied and rolled and pressed in. Of course, if you want to keep a little luminosity in the look, then by all means use a brush, or you can use a dense brush. You can use a super soft, airy brush. This particular one is squirrel hair. This is the Hakuhodo S102, and it's light and airy. If you want luminosity but you just want a light set, you can use something light and airy like that. And then you can also use something denser like the Lemare brush, and you'll get a bit more impact from your powder. And another tip for dry girls or individuals that are prone to lines or may have some wrinkles or some texture in their skin. Do you know, come in a little closer, do you know you don't have to wear powder? You don't have to wear powder if powder doesn't agree with your skin type, whatever that is, and for whatever reason that is. If you find that things are catching onto texture, address the texture for one, but that's another video. Perhaps you just don't need powder. There are so many foundations and concealers that are self-setting, meaning they go on nice and smooth and they set themselves and they dry to a semi-matte or matte finish and they stay put, and they don't need powder. I see so many dry girls force powder and then wonder why they don't like the foundation beneath. That's because you powdered something that doesn't need powdering. So just a consideration. Of course, different things apply in different circumstances. Under the eye area, you want to be very gentle about applying powder, because depending on what you apply your powder with will determine how the under eye looks. Under eye tends to be a very bougie area of the face. The skin is more delicate, it will dry out more quickly, and it will move around and crease more quickly than any other area of the face. So when setting the under eye, I'm even more specific. So whereas a sponge or a puff or a brush would work, I like to get something very small, first of all, small, targeted, soft, slightly dense. So a blending brush, or one of my new favorites, Pat McGrath's concealer brush, something like that, that's very soft and dense, gives you a beautiful under eye set without crinkling the under eye skin. No matter what age you are, the skin under the eye is more delicate and more prone to moving. So the more pressure you apply and the more textured the tool, then the more texture you're likely to see in your concealer and powder. And that's one of the reasons why, although I love the Beauty Blender for so many things, and I know it's popular to use under the eye and also to moisten and dampen when applying powder, that's why it's not my absolute favorite thing to use under the eye, but by all means, to each their own. The other reason I'm not fond of dampening anything when using powder, unless it's a wet to dry foundation powder, is because the purpose of powder is to set and absorb the liquid or the carrier or the oil that's in the foundation. So if you're already kind of pre-dampening it, then you're taking away some of its grabbing power. Whatever tools you choose to use to apply your powder, please, please, please wash them on a regular basis, especially those discs and those powder puffs. People rarely think to wash them, but they wash and they fluff back up beautifully, and they will apply your makeup better. And especially if you are blemish and pimple prone, then you really need to be gangster about keeping your tools clean. Now let's get into the powder. I figured that I would start with some of my favorites that I love to use on a pro level and also personally. These next couple are going to be powders that I know are going to perform, that I don't have to run on set to touch up the model or to tone down shine. Let's start with one of the popular ones, that is Laura Mercier's loose setting powder, and this one is translucent. This particular one has about a half a teaspoon left, so it's time to replace it. It's excellent for anchoring your liquids and your creams to your skin and giving you real lasting power and a beautiful, smooth, velvety matte finish. I especially love to reach for this for my normal and oily skin. Dry skins can tolerate this too, but I'm hesitant to use much of this on a dry skin under the eye. But when I want my T-zone to stay in place for life, I reach for my Laura Mercier. Favorites that I know is going to perform is Dermablend. This particular shade is a really popular one. It's called Cool Beige. Dermablend is another one that gives you a smooth, flawless, very matte finish that is sure to last. This is one of the heaviest hitters of them all. This is Ben Nye's Neutral Set Colorless Face Powder. I get the large tubs of these and I empty this out into a smaller sifter so I can put them in my kit. This is a beautiful air spun, soft setting powder, but it gives a beautiful, flawless matte finish. So if you want to look really smooth and not have to worry about your makeup budging, then the Ben Nye brand is still top notch. Ben Nye kind of came more into modern day popularity when Mario used the banana powder on Kim Kardashian, but they have a lot of really good products. It's a pro brand, but compared to some other brands, it is affordable, but the quality is superior in some cases. Ben Nye, a lot of people just have merged his name into one and call him Benai now. But Ben Nye is one of the old Hollywood heavy hitter makeup artists. I absolutely love classic movies, old Hollywood movies. Some people think when they say classic movies, they're actually talking about the 90s. I'm talking about real 1930s, 40s. But of course, I'm a professional artist and I've always just had a passion for the arts and creative things. And I think that if you're aspiring or new artist, you should know your history, but it's not necessarily something your everyday person would know. But Ben Nye was up there with like Max Factor, Dean and Davis Factor, who started Smashbox Cosmetics are actually the great grandsons of Max Factor. And there are some the Westmores or some other heavy hitters. A lot of the old Hollywood makeup legends have brands that have carried on their legacy, and Ben Nye is one of them. The next one is my current personal and professional favorite, the Poudre Universal Libra, the Loose Powder by Chanel. This particular shade is Translucent 2. It's a very soft, light beige shade, and it will cover a multitude of skin tones as well. I am so glad that YouTuber Angela Denise mentioned that they were discontinuing this formula, so I was able to get my hands on some. I had heard other pros as well recommend this for the longest time. This is the lightest and airiest of all the ones I've mentioned thus far. It adds a seamless, invisible perfection to the skin, and I do like this under the eye on all skin types. Pat McGrath Labs Loose Powder. This Skin Fetish Sublime Setting Powder is an absolutely beautiful formula. This is light medium 2. This one is medium 3. It's this gorgeous marigold shade, and I just really want this to be my under eye shade, but it's a little too rich for my under eye, but it's nice around the perimeter of my face. So my deeper girls, they get the rock this. So illuminating and stunning under the eye and all over the face. One of the reasons I love this formula is because it is light and airy like the Chanel. It does a good job at setting, but it doesn't totally suck the life out of the finish of the foundation. In other words, it leaves a subtle matte glow still in the face. It doesn't have that gangster mattification. It gives you a soft matte, and if you want to keep the luminosity in some areas, it doesn't totally eclipse that. Very similar to the formula of Pat McGrath's powder, and another artist that's very close to my heart is Danessa Myricks. This is Danessa's Evolution powder. This is one of the smaller ones. This is really nice for a pro kit, but it does come in a larger size as well with a beautiful sifter. This particular shade is yellow, but she has a few shades. Powder is so light and airy. When you tap it, it just swirls into the air. That's a very good sign that a powder is going to be like fairy dust. It gives a nice soft veil of mattification, but it does not eclipse the luminosity or the natural satin finish of the skin. Mac's Set Powder, because you know we have to put some respect on Mac's name, and Mac is not just a popular consumer brand, because yes, even though it's not as popular in social media world as it used to be, they still are very much making multi-million. Popular consumer brand, and it's a popular artist brand, and it has pro quality. And this is when you just want a good old-fashioned soft matte finish that you know is going to hold your makeup in place. Next is the Hourglass Mineral Veil Powder, and word on the street is we're just a little bit salty with Hourglass at the moment. This one gives a nice soft natural matte appearance too. It's not so mattifying that it takes the life out of the surface of the finish, but it does give you a nice soft set. And I really did think that the packaging was genius. It dispenses just the right amount of product, prevents waste. Even though it's a nice powder, for some reason I don't reach for it often. And then this last one is sort of an honorable mention. This is the YSL powder, and I'm so sad that they discontinued it. Why you would discontinue one of the most legendary loose powders in the game, I have no idea. This was the Soufflé de Claw, and maybe they'll come to their senses and bring it back one day. This gave you a very pretty soft focus finish. It was very nice, really popular to use under the eye, but also all over the face, and then it left a really subtle glow on the face. I actually picked this up when I was in the UK, and it was everywhere I turned in the UK. Lots of Boots still had them, and I believe Selfridges. So my UK girls, if you pop into Boots, you may be able to score some of these. I was so tempted to buy multiples and just sell them on the black market for thousands of dollars. So since YSL won't act right, I had to get another luxury love. So one of my recent acquisitions is the Sicily Loose Powder. This shade is number 2 Mate. Although it's new in my collection, it is very promising. It too is soft, airy, wafts into the air, is silky on the face, sets makeup in place, gives you that flawless, perfect finish. This next one may surprise you that it's in my collection, but this is Huda Beauty. This particular shade is Blondie, but the Huda Beauty brand has some beautiful shades, and I really like this powder formula. This particular shade I got for under the eye. The color is just gorgeous for tan skin tones to give that gorgeous golden lift under the eye, but not look so extreme. The formula is lightweight. It does a lovely job keeping makeup in place. It does have that distinctive smell. And I was a little afraid to try the Huda foundation and powder. One person even said it smelled like Fabuloso, which was hilarious. Not quite, but I can see what she meant. And then another brand that kind of rose to fame in the social media era is Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is their loose setting powder. This particular shade is Banana, and I'm wearing that today under my dry eye. My skin, I am pretty gangster about my skincare, but my natural skin type is dry, and then in the winter it's dry. But this is a soft, silky, beautiful powder. It keeps my makeup in place without giving a dry or textured appearance. Anastasia Beverly Hills did send over all of the shades. They thought about the very fair girls with this vanilla shade. Then they have a traditional translucent. I think this deep peach is absolutely gorgeous. And this golden orange is beautiful on NW45 and Mini Deeper. While we're talking about colored powders, let's talk about one of my favorite releases of 2020, Laura Mercier again, but this is her Translucent Honey. Laura Mercier came through with a banana powder no one knew we needed. We thought we had all the banana powders, but apparently Auntie Laura knew differently. Buttery whisper of peach banana powder. It is gorgeous. If you are, say, somewhere around NC 30 or so, you can wear it all over the face. But the medium to tan to deep girl, this is going to have your under eye glowing to the heavens. And unlike the regular translucent, for some reason my under eye loves this. But of course you have to always pay homage to the originator and the queen. So this is Ben Nye's luxury powder in banana. Beautiful, finely milled, butter colored powder. Keeps makeup in place, gives beautiful highlights to certain skin tones. Okay, I did a quick swatch side by side. This one is the Laura Mercier. Okay, so she's a little bit more vivid in shade. Another Banana Jam, Fenty's loose powder in banana. Fenty did a really pretty job, as they tend to do, with the shades of this powder. Formula wise, this wasn't my favorite formula. It gives a nice soft focus finish, and it does do a good job of holding makeup in place. I found that it can be slightly grabby, slightly clingy onto foundation. I do know how to finesse the powder and use the tiniest, airiest amount to avoid that. It also can be a wee bit drying. Let's move into pressed powders, and we are going to start with one of the most fabulous ones there is. There used to be beauty buzz around this, but I don't hear about it as often, but that has not stopped it from still being one of the best powders out there. This is the Nars Light Reflecting Setting Powder, and I actually think they have another shade in this now, but this one is Translucent Crystal. This comes in pressed and loose. People who understand this powder know how good it is, but sometimes there's some difficulty in understanding how it works. When you run your brush across this powder, it looks like there's nothing happening. It looks like there's nothing on the brush, which is the whole point. This is the most invisible feather lightweight powder ever, and when you press it on anywhere on the skin, it mattifies it, but you don't know why because it is truly invisible and lightweight. So all it does is mattify without adding any texture, any weight, anything except for perfection. But people tend to dig in this and think that they're not getting any product, and that tends to throw people off a little bit. Now, because this powder is so delicate, make sure that your powder or your powder puff is clean and doesn't have any foundation or oil residue on it, because it will create a hard pan there. And while we're on Nars, we'll mention another pressed powder. This one is Beach. This is their soft velvet pressed powder, and this one is one of those very dry skin friendly powders, and it comes in some pretty shades. This shade is called Beach. Overall skin tone would probably be Mountain. I got Beach specifically for the under eye area because it is a more moisturizing powder. It looks like clouds under your eye. It is so soft and beautiful. Another banger, Charlotte Tilbury's Airbrush Flawless Finish, and this is number 2 medium. I'm proud to have hit pan, and a lot of us are proud to have hit pan, but truth be told, there's not a ton of product in this little compact. If you love a velvety, soft focus texture, this is your girl. Another one that stole my heart for 2020 is the Gucci pressed powder. First of all, the vintage vanity packaging, need we say more, and it's refillable as well. This color is number 8, and this is one of my prettiest matches next to the offerings by MAC of their Studio Fix powders and their mineralized powders. This is one of the most perfect, beautiful golden matches that I've found for my overall complexion. It's a smooth powder. It's smooth to the touch. It's not the most buttery you've ever touched, but on the skin, it's barely detectable on the skin, which means that people just think you're soft and smooth and gorgeous naturally. One of my new acquisitions, and that is called Lemare. This is the Lemare Sheer Pressed Powder in the shade Medium D, and here's the shade. It's a light golden color. It's lighter than me. I was hoping it would be more of an all over match. I have tried it. It's a very creamy, buttery powder to the touch. I have to let you know how it wears, whether or not it's drying or things of that nature. But what I can tell you now from the one time that I wore it is that it gives a nice, soft, focused finish. For this next one, we unfortunately have a man down situation, but we're going to push through. This is my Pat McGrath Labs Blurring Under Eye Powder, and I just found out that she was in a little accident, and I'll probably transfer this to a sifter. It is very soft, and so it is prone to breakage. It's very unique. I don't know what kind of concoction Pat McGrath has created with this under eye blurring powder. It pretty much makes your skin disappear. Some products claim to be Photoshop. This literally photoshops your under eye in a MAC mineralized skin finish. Myself, along with many pro artists, have tons of these in their kit. They are just gorgeous finishing powders. So this is the finishing powder category. Finishing powders are going to be different from your setting powders in that not only do they provide a light set, they're more about the appearance of the skin. They're more about refining texture, giving the illusion of smoothness, blurring pores, giving a glow many times. So we're talking more about finishing powders, more specialty powders now. This is the Lemare. Lemare is back. This is another recent acquisition, the Lemare Loose Powder, and there was a big to-do, a big scandal. Lemare not only reformulated a powder that everyone loved, but then they shrunk the size and raised the price or something of that nature. But here is the latest version of their loose powder. It is relatively new to me, so I will have to wear it and try it in a few different settings to let you know what I really think. But right now I can tell you that it's very silky to the touch, and it also has a subtle shimmer in it. Products like that with a subtle shimmer can tend to be very pretty as an under eye powder and to give a lift and a glow and a soft focused finish because it plays with light and it creates light effect bouncing off of the skin. But if you're not careful, sometimes products like this can flash back as well. So I'll have to let you know. This is another one of my favorite powders of 2020. It's Ysl Touche Claw 3D All Over Glow. So although I'm angry with them for discontinuing the loose, they did kind of redeem themselves by coming out with an absolutely gorgeous pressed finishing powder. This is an illuminating powder. It claims to be universal. It will enhance quite a few complexions, but not all of them. Like if you're at the fairest end of the spectrum, then this has like a pink pearlescent that might show up a little too dark on you to be an all over powder, but might be like a pretty enhancement on the cheeks. But if you're now in the NC 20 up until the NC 45-ish range, then this you can use as an all over illuminating powder. Deeper skin tones than that, now you can start to use it as a pink pearlescent highlighting powder. It appears sort of beige at first glance, but you can clearly see that there's a pink purple pearl. This packaging is pink, but it has a pearl opalescence and a lovely gold accent, and it's magnetic. We can't talk about trickery without talking about Lancome's Absolute Powder. This is Lancome's Radiant Smoothing Powder. It comes in a few shades. This particular shade is Absolute Pesh. It has a very soft beigey appearance. This powder has the appearance of crushed pearls on the skin. So that can either give a really beautiful luminosity, or if you're too heavy-handed, it can take you to Tin Man territory. That powder just reminded me of one of the best brands to ever do a powder like that, and that was Shu Uemura's Pearl Powder. This has become more and more almost impossible to find, especially since they're no more in Saks and they've pulled out of the US, but you can still get Shu Uemura online. One of the great Japanese brands after one of the great Japanese makeup artists who's no longer with us. The brand that is literally credited with creating bronzer, Guerlain. And this is Guerlain's famous Meteorites. This particular shade is Doré or Golden. Meteorites are a specialty or finishing powder also. And they consist of these pearls. And depending on which one you get, it's depending on the color of the pearls. The pearls have different effects. Bronzing, lifting, color correcting, and when you swirl them all at once, they give the face this beautiful glow. And I can see people not liking this. I actually think it smells so good. It reminds me of the violet candies that my aunt used to have in her purse when I was a little girl. Although this year I said I wasn't buying a thing from Guerlain's end of year launch, I suddenly got a golden bee in my bonnet and had to have this finishing powder. This is the terracotta. This is a pressed version of terracotta. This is Golden Bee. Golden Bee is this beautiful bronzy shade, and it has gold. It's designed to give you golden, bronzy, perfected, glowing warmth to the skin. How does it look? I don't know because I haven't tried it yet. And let's end the video with one of my newest acquisitions. That is the Givenchy Prism Libra powder. And this powder claims to be every woman in that it says it's a matte finish with enhanced radiance. So this is supposed to both set and give you a bit of radiance. It comes in this square packaging and it almost has like a leather feel top. I was a wee bit perturbed because they do have different top styles, including one that has glitter, but the glitter only came in one shade, the fairest shade. 10 girls like glitter too, Givenchy. The fun and the intrigue about this powder is that it comes in 4 different shades, and when you shake it out of the sifter, they blend together as one, and they're supposed to give you this perfect look. Similar to Meteorites, the colors have different purposes. I deliberately purchased 6, which is deeper than myself, because I really want to use it more to warm the complexion and for the perimeter of the complexion. This has a very pretty soft focus smoothing effect, and I like this so much that I am going to get my actual shade in the powder and play with it some more as well. And that brings us to the conclusion of this particular powder palooza. I hope you enjoy taking a tour through these powders, because I definitely had fun sharing them with you. I look forward to seeing you in the very next video, but until we meet again, keep it pretty.